niggas will get you shot too. Come with the cleaning crew, you kick the bucket when they mop you. So fuck the streets and the system guarding elites with military police. Got people scary to speak. Tell your story, tell your story, tell your story. Can't nobody tell a better pain of glory. So tell your story, tell your story, tell your story. Better you than people finding out I'm more. So tell your story, tell your story, tell your story. Can't nobody tell a better pain of glory. So tell your story, tell your story, tell your story. Better you than people finding out I'm more. Tell your story, man.
All right, hello. Welcome to another MACM's Virtual Artist Storytelling, where we have our guest, Mr. Ben Butler, here to deliver his story to us tonight. So, so just getting started in that. The floor is yours, boss. Throughout, we can ask questions. Let me put this banner up real quick. But yeah, the floor is yours, like I said, man, just from start to finish, and we'll let you know if we have any questions. Go ahead, please.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for the introduction. It's a pleasure to be here tonight. Jumped the chance to do anything involved with the incredible MACM group, and been working with them since back in the manual days when they were here with us, and just so glad to be a part of this today. The reach out that I got was to talk to you about my story, especially through the lens of the choices that have led me to be here. And that word is super important for me. If you talk to anybody over the last 11 years at Manual, they can associate me with the saying of choose life. And that choice piece is so important to what we do with that. And choices are the foundation of our human nature. It is what we do as human beings that separates us, is our ability to choose. And I believe we are at our most humane, we are at our best when we are choosing things that lead us to life, lead us to light, and lead us to love. I'm a Denver native, born and raised and spent most of my life here in Denver. Grew up bouncing all over the place. The rent control life of a single parent can make your housing come and go real quick. And moving over pretty much every neighborhood in the city. Spent a few years living in Park Hill, lived off Colorado Boulevard, lived over here kind of by Manual on the E with some friends when they took us in, and then settled kind of out in southeast Denver. A lot of my early life was me coming to grips and dealing with my own ethnicity and where I fit into the larger picture of Denver. My dad, while not really in the picture much, I definitely knew who he was. And his name was Buddy Butler. He was a director and pioneer of Denver theater here. He left Denver and moved to California right about the time I was born. And having a black dad with a white mom and always being a little bit fair-skinned and trying to figure out where I fit into that, and kind of that song "Black Man in a White World" defined a lot of my early life, my early socialization. And I think it wasn't until I found football with the Prince Hall organization and Coach Bill Mullen, may he rest in peace, just passed away like in the last week or two. And man, that Prince Hall organization wrapped me up and really taught me what it was about to be a member of a community, to take pride in who I was, the ending of every practice with our Black history facts and having to name Bruce Randolph and A. Phil Randolph, like all the trivia and things that we had to do. And if we couldn't get it right, we had to run. And man, it changed my whole life and kind of set me on the path that I've continued on ever since, which is being a part of a larger community, training up children the way they should go, Proverbs 22:6, and giving back and making sure that I'm able to be, for the people that are in my life, what was not there for me and mine, or was there for me and mine through coaches and directors. Going to Denver Public School starting in the 6th grade, the same time I started playing football for Prince Hall, went to Hill Middle School, and it was there that I really kind of fell back in love with the arts at the same time and doing theater and football. And while I was passionate about football, I was also this weird kid that would sit underneath the tree and read Shakespeare while I waited for practice to start. And just loved the idea of being up on stage. And I didn't really know or be able to explain why. And I thought all the time that those two aspects of my life would eventually come into conflict. And I thought that I'd have to choose one or the other. And it wasn't until I got into high school where I was like, okay, I'm a high school football player now. Went to Thomas Jefferson High School, got there right at the tail end of the Coach Cross days and the incredible DPL undefeated streak they were on, and wanting to be a part of that legacy again, wanting to be a part of something bigger than myself. And I got to high school and still couldn't get away from the theater aspect. And so I would do football in the fall and then act in our musicals in the spring. And I'm not a musical guy by any means at all, but they would come get me mostly just to lift up dancers and be an extra body in the crowd scenes, but I still loved it. The players and the guys that I was at TJ with, it was an interesting time there. That they had a lot of the legacy families that had come through TJ at that time. The Ross family, the Houston family, the ages before the Lindsay family, and I wasn't an anybody family. I was just this strange kid that popped up out of nowhere, and man, I felt like I had to prove and earn my name. And I felt like I had to establish myself every step of the way. And I did that over my years there, and I played and I worked, and I was sure that being a part of TJ, a part of this D1 college producing machine and NFL guys coming out of there, that was my path. I was destined to be the next NFL guy, the next D1 college football guy, and I would spend hours just walking around the hallway of the school, memorizing the trophies in the trophy case and looking at the names and seeing this greatness that was around me. And I was like, that's it. That's going to be me. And to be perfectly honest, and it shouldn't come as much of a shock to any of my former students or current students that are out there right now, I spent way more time thinking about football than I did about school. And my grades were always just enough to be eligible. I was always doing just enough. I was the one running to the teacher at the last minute before grades get in. Hey, can you grade this worksheet from 2 weeks ago so I can be eligible to play? And dance, okay, I got a D here. Can I get a C over here? And doing more math to keep myself eligible than if I'd have just done math in math class and been eligible. I was way more of an expert on playing the game of school than going to school. And that definitely had an impact on the attention that I was getting from some of the college coaches that I wanted to go to. While some of those letters were still coming in, I wasn't as high on the priority list as I maybe would have liked to be. And in my young gun mind, that was okay. It was all going to work out. I was going to get there. And if not to, the university in Miami, then maybe I'd settle and stay close to home or go to CU, CSU, but still D1. It was going to happen. It was going to happen. And my senior year, about midway through the year, I hurt my knee. Somebody fell into it at practice, and I didn't even pay. I was so into the drill, so involved. I just got up and kept going. And by the next day, my knee was the size of a basketball. And I kept going. I didn't go see the trainer like I should have. I didn't take care of it. I made the choice to keep going and keep pushing. And my productivity fell a little bit, and just the word got out. And you don't know how replaceable you are until something like that happens. And what went from literally a garbage bag full of letters from schools, all communication stopped. entirely who I was.
You might tap in real fast, where you been?
Please do.
I wanted to ask you, why were you using to play that game? You know what I mean? When you go to the teachers at the last minute to get an assignment, you know what I mean? Why were you choosing that route instead of doing the work class like you said?
You know, that's a great question on why I was playing the game instead of just doing the classwork. I think it was a combination of a couple things. I think part of it, my own sense of ownership, I'm going to own. I was more interested in all of the extra part of school than the actual school part. There's a great quote: high school would be a great place, too bad classes get in the way. That was definitely my mindset for a while there. Football practice and hallway and the girls, and I was still doing theater, and so I would miss an English class to go just sit in the drama room and do nothing. So I'll own that part. As a teacher and as an educator, I'm also going to be very real that the school system at that time, and I know it's a lot of school systems that still exist like this, why I'm so blessed to be a manual right now, because we don't, but then I couldn't have cared less about worksheet 7-C. And I knew the teachers didn't care about worksheet 7-C. And I knew that school was going to be, we were going to start on page 1 of this textbook, and we'll get to page 184 by the end of the semester, and that's it. There was no investment in the learning and in the teaching. I wasn't learning anything that was relevant or spoke to my soul or excited any of the many interests that I had. And nobody in my school time ever asked me, what is it I wanted to learn about? What is it I wanted to know more of? And, you know, I'm part of that generation. We can go back and we can recite things like Magna Carta to Manifest Destiny, to all of these things that didn't have anything to do with who I was, how I saw myself. I didn't learn about things that looked and sounded and felt like the people that I knew and loved. I'll never forget sitting in my junior year. I got to take an African American literature class, and man, I was excited. I was so stoked. Like, okay, African American literature, young black man, I'm learning about African American literature. Here we go. And we had this first year teacher who, bless his heart for trying to offer it, but this first year white guy teacher who couldn't really read Zora Neale Hurston's "Their Eyes Were Watching God." And so if I really look at some of the earliest times of me teaching, I read that book almost cover to cover to my African American lit class. Just, if you know the book, you know the vernacular and the language and the writing style is so powerful in there, but you had this poor first or second year teacher up there struggling his way through it, had no idea what it was saying. I was like, man, we're gonna get something out of this class, y'all. We've waited so long to have an African American lit class. So I remember reading that book out loud to most of my class. I remember reading The Color Purple, most of that book out loud to some of my class, and there are football players in there. And so we were getting ready for a state playoff game, sitting in the locker room reading Color Purple. And I'm just sitting there just reading out loud, like, come on, yo, we all gonna do this. And I think that was one of the major breakthroughs and awakenings for me in school, was I cared more about my friends' grades and their well-being than I did about my own. Like I was just kind of joking about the math class thing. I remember one math class I walked in every day. I can't believe I'm a teacher now. I walked in every day, picked up a newspaper, read the sports section, entertainment and news, and then fell asleep. That was my math class for a whole year, and I failed miserably. I learned a lot. I had fun, but I didn't care anything about what he was up there saying. And he was a good teacher, great teacher. And I know again, knowing what I'm on the teacher side of it now, I'm sure there were many a teacher conference and meeting about what to do about this Butler kid that's just reading the newspaper in class every day. At least I hope they were talking about it. I would talk about it if I had a kid doing that in class every day. But then I got a geometry teacher who wasn't as strong of a teacher, and my friends were struggling. I was like, all right, y'all, I'm gonna learn this geometry with us so I can make sure all my people are good and everything, because we got things that we want to do, and I don't want anybody to be lost. And just cared, again, that part of being a part of something bigger mattered more to me than just being a part of myself.
Yes, indeed. And to that point, looking at how you said you felt like you had to prove yourself, You know what I mean? Why didn't you join the gang?
And that's a big part of a lot of my friends growing up.
Or did you join?
So I didn't join a gang. I think probably wholly just because of my mom. I saw how much my mom worked was a mortgage banker, and she'd get me up as she was leaving for work across the city at about 6 a.m. And I was a latchkey kid, and she got home with a bag of Wendy's every night or a bag of something about 7:30, 8 o'clock. And I think I was probably 10 years old when she told me, and assumptive on her part, but just the credit that I give her for who I am as a man. She told me she got home one night. She said, Benjamin, I'm so glad I can trust you to be home and be safe. That's the only thing that lets me get through the day. And just knowing what risking my safety might have done to her, it just wasn't an option for me at that time. And I know I had friends joining gangs, again, living in the Park Hill neighborhood. And I kind of fell into it. It's become cliche, but I also really appreciate a lot of my friends that did join gangs. The way they looked out for me is I became the athlete. I became Ben's just playing ball. And I really kind of leaned into that protection piece of it and kind of being shielded by a lot of stuff. I had one of my really good friends, Chris, who grew up 3 houses down the way from me. And, we were little, we were the hide and seek, playing tag, etc. And as he started to go down the gang route, I remember one night he kicked me out of his house. He's like, man, you can't be here right now. We got stuff going on, you got to go. And in that time, I was kind of offended in the front, like, what you talking about, man? You my boy. But I see now kind of the separation that he was trying to give me from what he was doing to what I was doing. It broke my heart later on as I kind of got that metacognition and could see the decisions he was making, that I couldn't do or provide more or get him to where I wanted to be, because it just wasn't his path. It wasn't his journey.
Thank you. Go ahead, young Mark Jonathan.
Yes, sir. I appreciate you for tapping in with us again. But I was just curious to know, what are some of the, whether it was situations or anything that happened, like whether while you were in school or outside of school, that basically just inspired you to be a teacher?
Definitely. There's a couple of those. 2 big moments for me happened my senior year. I knew I wanted to be a football coach. I wanted to do football. I was a football player. You figure you play football, so you can't play football anymore, then you go be a football coach. And in middle school, one of my best friends, JJ, we had this whole plan going through middle school. We were going to be on a middle school team, doing our middle school thing. Then we're going to get to high school together. He was going to be the quarterback. I was going to be the lineman. I was going to protect him. And we were going to go 4 years at TJ, then go off and do the D1 thing, and in the whole plan that you have, right? And he passed away medically mysteriously, right? Like, we look at the way the medical field and the medical profession treats young men of color. Wrote us up and died. I just got a phone call going into my senior year that JJ died. And that was it. And I had just seen him over the summer at the Aurora Mall, standing outside the Century 16 Theater. And we talked about, man, it's senior year. Come on over, transfer teaching. We'll get you back on track. We'll do these things. You'll be with me. He's like, yeah, man, I'm coming to practice. I'm going to come to weight room, etc. And then just got that phone call. And the lack of attention that he got was so hurtful to me, and the callousness that some of my teachers responded with, that I've been a kid that, even though I wasn't great at homework, I was always a positive kid in the classroom. For me to come in and no teachers, none of them, and I had some great teachers, asked me what was wrong, what had changed, what was going on with me. They were never invested that much in my life. It was, can we get to worksheet 7-C today? And that was a big part of me saying, I want to be that invested. And I want to make sure that I know what's going on in my kids' lives, for better or worse, because we need someone to be there for us. The other big part of me really committing to education was, I tell this story to every new class of freshmen I get at Manual. Sat in the auditorium, freshman orientation, and the principal or assistant principal, I don't remember who it was, said, did the old look to your left, look to your right. One of you three people aren't going to be here to cross that stage in 4 years. And I was offended, because I was, of course, like anybody sitting next to two of my best friends, like, what you mean not one of us is going? You already given up, like, you already doing the math to eliminate us. And if that wasn't motivation enough, the hardest part is then, unfortunately, the person to my right, who I played Little League football with and come up with, he dropped out March of our senior year. And same thing, great kid, great family, great dude, but just, I mean, he didn't slip through the cracks, he cannonballed through them mugs. Because again, nobody had that connection, nobody had that touch point of, we got to get him here. What can we do? Can we exhaust every opportunity? And so really why I became a teacher, one of those two big things is two parts. One, I wanted to be a teacher so I can make sure nobody ever looked my class, my kids, my students in the face their first day of high school and said, you're not going to be here at the end. Like, that's never going to happen as long as I'm a teacher. And then number two, that when we do get those struggles, that I know I did everything in my power to try to catch those kids before they're gone, before they leave, before they find those cracks and see themselves fall through it. And I know I'm not 100% at that. And if anybody's ever wondered, I stay up nights trying to think about kids that didn't graduate in 2012 that I might have had in class for an afternoon. Or this, like it eats away at me, and I imagine those lives and ask myself, what more could I have done? But I know I tried, and I know I was always available and still available to them with everything I can do.
100, bro. So we got a question in the comments for you.
Yep.
Two questions. So coming in from Lacey McDonald. All right. So when you were at TJ, did you have any mentors?
That's a great question from Lacey McDonald, who was one of those names that I was walking around memorizing as a TJ legend. So having that comment there is huge for me. I definitely had student mentors that looked after me and kind of helped me as I was coming up in that next class, from Corey Ross, who was a senior when I was a freshman. I remember him, Sean Smalls, and that class that helped me like learn how to lift in the weight room. Just this funny little freshman kid was like, come lift with us, bro. To David Mendoza and the whole Mendoza family, and the things they did for me really taught me how to be and aim for that next step of football. And then administratively, you get the class above me, Derek Martin, Mitchell John, like just family, like guys that I consider family to this day. Just watching the Manual basketball game with Mitch yesterday. And then in terms of the teachers, administrators, I can't say enough about Miss Young, Rose Young. Like she was a stalwart at TJ. Anybody that passed through those halls in her Spanish class, and that was one that I can definitely say. And I wish I had been taking her classes sooner, because I know she loved us as kids. It just never kind of crossed my path until my senior year. But she was at every wrestling match, every football game, and definitely somebody who felt much love from her. And even now as an adult, when my mom passed away in 2011, Ms. Young has been right there at every Manual homecoming game. It comes to Manual plays and things just to support me. And so that's just been huge for me as well there. I go on list of coaches, Lonnie Tate. Man, I'll never forget the times for someone who, was about this tall to me, him cussing me out on my chest plate. I felt about 3 feet tall. He just jabbed me in the chest plate on the sideline. And a good coach can make you do that. No matter how big you are, you can definitely feel feel like you're a 7-year-old all over again.
No doubt. And then Lacey McDonald with his part two. Do you, as an adult, have a mentor now? Kind of spoke on that.
Absolutely. Absolutely, as an adult, and I look at that term mentor as an adult as someone that helps guide us when we're at our that is that continual place for knowledge. And people that are mentors, there's not an age or restriction or level on it. I mean, I look at Phil Douglas as a huge mentor for me, working in this community and everything that he's doing. Like, someone I'm aspiring to be like, in the connections that he makes. I can't tell you the number of times when Phil's in the building, I'm like, Phil, I need help with X kid, with Y kid, with Z kid, and we gonna invent some new letters for kids because I know you're gonna have their back, and I know I can count on you, and I know the love that he's gotten, the realness that he's got for kids and community is unbelievable. Pastor Vernon Jones, another one that just, I tell him all the time, I don't have any kids myself right now, but I hope someday I'm a third, I'm a tenth of the father that he is, both to his own kids and to every kid that he comes in contact with. And people that I still look to for their guidance, for their mentorship, for their role models. And I don't know if we do enough time doing that, recognizing and calling them out. You guys are definitely role models for me and people I still strive to embody and live up to. And then I'll also say, and this is where I was kind of going with the age piece, and there are kids that I've taught that I look to as people that I want to be like. Look at someone like an Elijah Huff, and I'm rocking the City Love hoodie from him today. Man, that kid's been pastoring me since he was a freshman in high school. I'm the coach, I'm the teacher, and there are things that I got to, do and help guide him. But the man that he's grown and become is inspiring to me. My nephews, who are obviously much younger, but I look and aspire to be the man that they are. And they serve as inspiration no matter your age. People that I learn from and grow from every day.
No doubt. Go ahead, young guy.
Hey, what's up, Mr. Butler?
Hello, sir. How you doing?
Man, doing good, doing good. It's always good talking to you, man. Man, the first teacher I actually came in contact with when I first ever even stepped foot in manual. That's crazy. You know what I'm saying? Like, I always got love for you, man, for real. But I do have a question when it comes to, because football, you know what I'm saying? Football and theater is your love, right? How do you feel about children who might have a different interest, when it comes to like maybe not wanting to be an athlete or a theater? How do you deal with those kids as opposed to children who, do have a passion in those aspects? You know what I'm saying?
Most definitely. I'm gonna pick on you a little bit as a great example of that. Elijah, like you came in, you were Mr. Football. That's when we first met. Was you coming in and be football? I think we drug you out to a 7-on-7 your first afternoon. We're like, here, put this helmet on in a jersey and come on, we gonna go play. And then by your senior year, your passions had shifted and changed. And the activism and the community involvement that you got in had really taken over and started to drive your life and passion. I think that's phenomenal. I think my job as a teacher and even as a coach and as just someone involved with young people, I don't care what your passion is. I just care that you have a passion. And whatever that passion is, it's my job, I feel, as a teacher and as a coach to find out what it is and to be invested in it and be involved in it. So that's, if my football players are over here doing this and I can get a free minute away to come listen to a kid do a poetry slam or poetry jam, I'm gonna go do that. If my kids are gonna do something with art and I have a chance to support that, I'm gonna go do the art thing with them. It's why any chance I can get to invest in a kid's passions for me is huge, because passions, again, lead back to that idea of choice. As long as you're choosing your passion and choosing that love, I'm gonna always support it and do what I can to not just support from afar, but get involved in and actually engage with.
That's a beautiful thing, yeah. I definitely felt that, man, because shoot, history. See how things. I'm not even an original East Side. I want to let that be out there. I'm from Aurora. You know what I'm saying? I'm an adopted East Sider, straight up and down. I've been around for a few years, but you know, I'm so glad I'm able to interact with people and meet people like Mr. Butler and a lot of the others. So I appreciate that for real. Appreciate us even talking.
Yes, sir. So we got another question from Lacey McDonald. So when you hit hard times and challenges in your life, what words of wisdom do you think of?
Absolutely. First one that comes to my mind is a quote my mom had from me from the time I can remember, and that's "A man without honor has nothing." I'm gonna say it again: "A man without honor has nothing," and that has gotten me through so many times of when I've been confronted with hardships and hard decisions. And if nothing else, I'm gonna choose the honorable path. I'm gonna make sure I'm right with my honor, with myself, and everything after that I can build on. Because I take also the inverse of that. A man with honor has something. Might not be everything, but you got something. You got a starting place. You got feet to stand on, and if you've got that, you can stand. You can make a choice. You can take a step. You might have to walk backwards. You might have to change direction. But as long as you have something, you can go forward with it. And then the other pieces, and I got just constant quotes from you look at like the Dr. Kings, Jimmy Baldwin's, and things like that as well. Always pull up the right quote in the right moment, and being well read. That's one of the reasons why I push reading. Is why I teach reading, is because I think that there's something to be said for the more you read, the more you can intake, the more you then have in your file cabinet to pull out for a specific situation, a specific moment, a specific need of guidance.
No doubt. Appreciate you. Go ahead, G.
Hello. Thank you for joining us. Okay, so my question is, what do you see being the impact and the importance of Black teachers, and then specifically male Black teachers?
I think having Black male teachers is so important in schools, both with large Black and BIPOC populations, but also in predominantly, you get kind of the PWI as a thing for colleges, but I would even consider that predominantly white institutions for high schools as well, because we have so much that can be learned from and taught from the Black male experience. And not just, and this is something I'm deeply passionate about, Black male teachers as professionals and being respected for the content and the skills experts that we can be. I think we lose so many Black male teachers because you become a Black male teacher in the school and you're the discipline guy, right? You're the one, you got to go get the kids that are in trouble. It's a reverse intersect of segregation within a school. That surely this Black male teacher will put you with the Black male kids, and that's beautiful. There's things to be said there, but it's limiting our scope of who we can speak to and what we can speak to and what we are capable of doing. That a Black male math teacher who spends the entire time teaching the Pythagorean theorem and all the other math aspects is just as powerful, if not more so, because it changes such a narrative as the Black male counselor, who is, again, still super important, but is just kind of been shuffled into that role. And, there's tons of readings out there about the cap that goes on Black male teachers and Black female teachers in administration, that there's that AP, that assistant principal cap, because we can be the second in command or the third in command. We can be a part of our niche and in charge of that, but never the whole thing, never the whole shebang. And when we do rise to those levels, we have such a short shelf life because of treatment and all of the other systemic and institutional issues that we run into at the leadership level, which is unfortunate.
Absolutely. Thank you for that. And then follow up, Do you think that Black students would succeed better in the education system if they had more Black teachers outside of just the disciplinary or physical education areas?
I would definitely think so, and I think the bigger answer to that for me is Black male students and Black students would succeed at a higher rate if they had teachers that cared more about them and about them holistically. And I think then that you're more likely than to see that perhaps from a Black teacher, but it's not all, it's not the immediate stopgap and the immediate solution. We have uncaring Black teachers. I've run into uncaring Black teachers as well as uncaring white teachers. Bad teachers are bad teachers. And I think that what I want to be very supportive of from the education standpoint is just because I'm a Black male teacher, you can't put me in a classroom and expect my Blackness to be the teaching aspect. He must be fine. He's a Black teacher. You put him into the Black kids. These Black male teachers need professional development. Black male teachers need mentorship. Black male teachers need feedback and coaching. And I think that there's to tie in my various passions and interweave them here. There's a lot tighter rope, a lot tighter leash on Black male teachers, like there are like Black male head coaches in sports. Like if I'm a white teacher or a non-BIPOC teacher, you get chances and all of these systems and improvements and growths. If you're a BIPOC teacher, man, you better have figured it out. Why? What do you mean? You're just bad at this, you're out. And you don't get the same development, you don't get the same coaching. And I've been blessed being here at Manual. I've gotten to experience so many of those things, and I've gotten so much of that help. But I do see it in districts and cities and friends around me that you never get that chance. You don't get the same support. You don't get the same uplifting and time for growth. That's probably the best way to say it.
Thank you for that. Thank you for
Yeah,
that.
you being mad precious right now.
Yeah, you saw me, right?
Look, not precious, man. He was trying.
You know me, they've been waiting, all right? So I want to come back to when you were saying you had to prove yourself. You know what I mean? Did you feel like you had to prove yourself to the black side of you and the Black population, or did you feel you had to prove yourself to the white side of you and the white population?
Man, I feel like I've been in a lot of situations where I felt like I've had to prove and uphold my Blackness. And that's been hard times, and it's definitely something that was a struggle for me when I was much younger and finding my place and my role in the Black community. I've never felt that I had to prove or uphold any sense of whiteness because, either I'm gonna fit into that community or I don't. Like it's like I'm just already an outsider in that sense, and in so many ways there. And I've never had any desire or movement to be like, oh, I need to connect more to my white side or anything like that. I love my mom. I can't imagine how hard it must have been for her as a white corporate banker woman raising singularly on her own this Black son. And I don't know to this day how she did it, that I've never questioned my own Blackness. I forget, it was a stand-up comedian a long time ago that was like, well, you check the white box I've never checked a white box in my life on any application or form or anything. And so I know that, this movement like, don't check me in a box, don't put me in a box. I've just always checked the black box. That's just who I've been my entire life. And knowing that there have been times, and rightfully so, within a very guarded, especially here in Denver, a very guarded Black community because of the trauma the Black community in Denver has faced and continues to face. This can definitely be a guarded and close-knit community. And it's something that I am proud to be a part of. And also had to come to terms with what it meant to be a part of that community as well.
And follow up too. What in terms of like the relationship, so was there any type of relationship that you had with your dad? You know, and I'm speaking on, you know, it's gonna follow up with the, you know, do you think, you know, with you being mixed, you know what I mean, you being black, identifying as black, you know what I mean, and having do you think that's something that all, you know, everybody who is mixed, have a white and a black, have an issue with that? They have to prove their blackness to the black side. Do you think that's a myth, or do you think that's true to an extent?
Kind of the first thing first, I did have some relationship, albeit really weird, with my dad. My dad just passed away in January, actually, so that's definitely brought a lot of these feelings and conversations to the forefront. And interacting with some of my dad's other kids that I'd never met, had never talked to, that reached out and trying to make connections in his passing. My dad would come back to Denver anytime theater brought him back to Denver, and he and my mom would have a relationship while he was here, and then they wouldn't, and I wouldn't when he was gone, or when he was gone, excuse me. And one of my big regrets in my life is he never saw me play a football game. He came into town one time in the football season. So in all my years of doing football, he came into town one time that would have coincided with football, and it was a blizzard of 97, 90, whatever that crazy fall October blizzard was, and our game got snowed out. And that was the one time he would have been around to see me play football. The other time that would have been close, my dad actually directed me in a show at Shadow Theater Company my senior year. He directed us in, I'm not in the theater right now, so I can say it. He had directed me in a production of Macbeth my senior year. And that was a really weird thing to be working for him. And I'd already established myself as an actor in the Denver community and as kind of a Shakespeare person, to be working for him. And he directed, and then like directors do sometimes, I would have hoped it would have been different. He left before opening. And that's a common thing for directors. They'll see the show and they'll get it up on its feet, and then he left and never saw a production. So never saw me on stage outside of rehearsals, never saw me on a field. And honestly, that's an internal battle that I feel like I can say I'm in a good place with it, but I'm sure there's still tons of scar tissue and issues that I'm sure will pop up my entire life because of that fractured and unusual relationship I had with my dad. And then I say, in some ways, I think it's harder because I knew who he was, and we did have that semi-relationship than no relationship at all. I mean, I've felt that way at times. I know there's, tons of people in our community that don't know fathers at all, but man, knowing him but not having him there as a father was incredibly hard for me. And definitely something I still deal with today. And with him passing, we never came to peace before he passed, and we never kind of had a final conversation around any of those things. When my mom died, he didn't make the funeral. He sent an email, and that was kind of the end of I was so protective of my mom. That was kind of it for the last time we really talked or had any sort of exchange there. And so that was, almost 10 years ago. The other side of your question, in terms of the proving of blackness with mixed, I think it's different for every mixed identity person, in terms of who they identify and where they identify with. And I do think there's a struggle in that for so many of us to see who it is that I am, and to have the very fabric of your identity questioned from the outside in, and kind of that sense of self-doubt and it's not even self-unsuredness because I never questioned who I was or where I fit in, but I didn't always fit in immediately or accepted to fit in where I thought I would have or where I wanted to. And I can say I've never felt totally shunned from a group, from a community within the larger black community, black athletics, black football, black churches, anything like that. I've always felt like I found my way in, but there's definitely a sense of myself that I've got to say, this is who I am, and I'm going to hold pat to that. And younger, when we're all going through various identity issues in our youth, that can definitely be a little more tumultuous than not.
Thank you for answering.
All right, sir, we got some more questions for you in the chat. All right, so as a young black man, is it okay for you to express your feelings? Is it okay for men to cry? And do you have a space to express your emotions and decompress from stress?
Kind of a two-layer. The obvious and first answer is yes. As a young black man, it is okay for me, for anyone to express their feelings, to cry, to feel emotion, to be vulnerable, to deal with our own mental health. And that's something that isn't talked about enough. And that's kind of the second layer that I think of that question. One of my foundational texts is a book called Cool Pose. And it's one that I read when I was growing up. This is an interest read. And then in my professional life, it's become very important to me because we can't discount the fact that there's a reason why so many black men don't feel like it's okay. And that's a survival mechanism. It's something that we've had to learn on so many different levels that we've been taught and shown by an outside world, by factors of our inside life, when it's not okay to do those things. And so, I mean, it's not as simple as you can't just roll up on a young black man, a young black teenager, and be like, go ahead and cry it out right now. Well, I want to be able to do that. And we would think that we can, but the necessity for that cool mask, that disaffected persona, doesn't come from nowhere. We didn't wake up one morning and decide, you know what? I'm just going to be kind of blank and disaffected. It's a learned survival strategy. If you can't ask a young black man to be emotional, to be vulnerable, to have feelings if you don't also address the things that are causing the hurt and the pain. I liken it to surgery, and you can't take an open wound and open it more and say, okay, we're going to let this breathe, and never talk about what stabbed him in the first place. You got to address the stabbing as well as the wound, because if you just open that wound up, and even if you throw some, Band-Aids on there and some buzzwords and send them back out and they get stabbed again, you haven't done anything but cause them double the hurt and double the pain. And so as we talk about and we deal with those things, yes, it's important to, and I will always trumpet mental health and emotional stability and emotional openness. But we also have to realize that when we're asking for that openness, just by definition, what is it we're opening ourselves up to? And can we defend them and defend our youth while they're learning to open up? Because if not, they're going to go back to defending themselves and closing back up.
Real spill, man. Yeah, that was real, man. Young Act. Go ahead, man.
All right, Mr. Butler. So my question to you is, growing up with a white mother, especially involving masculinity, because a lot of us have, single, usually black mothers, but single mothers is so very prevalent in the black community. Period. How does that how did that evolve or like create your masculinity growing up with a single mother? Like, did you have any male role models or people in which you looked up to, or like how does a white woman raise a black man and still teach them to be a man? You know what I'm saying? Like that. that seems complex to me, and I want to understand like where your masculinity falls into play. To be honest.
Absolutely. The first part to answer that is I am so grateful and blessed to the coaches and the men in my life. I think I go to coaches immediately because that's my first kind of go to that put their arms around me and were those male role models and those male guidance pieces. I also have a phenomenal uncle who lives in Durango, and he was the one that taught me to change the tire and to do, kind of look at like the classic masculine man stuff. And also, though, through his model, what it meant to be a faithful husband, and to be a caring husband, and to be a caring father. I'd go spend some summers out there, and he would, not only be doing tire stuff, but then he'd also be making sure that my older cousins' football uniforms and all of that were cleaned out, and we're like driving to diving practice. My older cousin was a diver, and kind of those little lessons and things that we pick up there. My mom always encouraged me to spend time around them, and I think an important thing for me is that she never claimed to be both a mother and father both. She was an extremely strong mother. And I picked up important parts of what I believe to be a positive masculinity from her as a woman, respecting women, communication, open. Like these are things that we have to also accept are a part of masculinity and are the avoidance of things like toxic masculinity. We can learn positive masculinity traits from things that are too often considered to be feminine. But then also she put me around these coaches and put me in these programs and gave me the openness and access to these people, to these men that I still look up to and contact today. I talked about Coach Bill Mullen, him passed away, but his son Brian Mullen was my direct football coach. And I can't even imagine it's funny, he's a coworker now. He works with me here at Manual. I can't even imagine who I would be as a man without his influence in my life for those 3 years that I played Little League football for him. But the imprint and the impact that he had on me in those times was just tremendous. And so, kind of round back into your question, how does a single white mother raise a black man? And I would answer by saying she did the best job that she could do of being her. And then anything that she couldn't do, she found support and help. And through blessings from God, we were able to build those networks.
Word, definitely. That's a great way to respond, for sure. Because basically, she was very transparent and honest, and she was real about the situation. Like she knew you was a black son, and she was a white mother, and was just like, "This is what it is. Let's work with it. It is what it is. We gotta do what we gotta do." I like that. Y'all hear me?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, sorry. Somebody called me just for a quick second. So my next question would be, can you define what a man is? Because, I think when it comes to the black culture, especially in the black community, what we identify or see as a man might be looked at as skewed because of the trauma we've been through as a community, from gang culture to athletics to an assortment of things. What is a man, especially a black man? Because we know we're a target, right? I want to hear your opinion on that.
That's a great question. I think back to when you were in my class and we were reading Song of Solomon by Toni Morrison. And we were talking about, okay, where does Milkman in that become a man, and the traumas and things that he faced. Great book. I'm not going to get into the whole book analysis here. I'm not going to slip too much into my AP Lit roots here. But for me, I think being a man means, I'm going to use, kind of some contemporary language here. I think being a man is when you can be 100 with yourself. That I look at us as going up and growing through life, and when you can, weird term, when you can fill your man meter, when you get to 100% of honest and comfortability with yourself and your ability to take care of yourself and your responsibilities, to me, that is what being a man is all about. the ability to care for self and care for responsibilities. And I think when we fail to meet that threshold, or we try to cheat the threshold. We try to skirt and we try to cut off a responsibility, or we try to rush a process when we're not actually there yet. I think that's when we can see ourselves doing so much damage in the world. So yeah, when your man meter's at 100, when you're 100 with yourself, that's where I'm at.
Boy, appreciate that, Mark. Mark, you want to close that joint?
Yes, sir. So, man, yeah, sure. You've been giving great answers, man. I got another question for you in the comments. So, from Pablo Mario Soto, I hope I pronounced that right, my brother. But do you believe in focusing on one idea during your life to accomplish it and succeed, or to explore around and attempt to multiple ideas/paths at once, even if you have less knowledge on, to succeed? Which would you consider the best investment? That's a great question.
That's a really great question. My history and my background of being involved in theater and football, and I wrestled for a time and did. I walked down so many different paths. I was all about being well-rounded. And I think that there is a benefit to exploration, to trying out the world. I say that, and then on the flip side, I'm going to say I'm probably the least traveled person that I know, because I never went, my poor mom, I never let my mom take me on family vacations because I had football practice and then camp and then this thing and then that. And we can't go anywhere, Mom. I got stuff to do. Like, I'm busy from like all the way through my football career and on. And now as an adult, I coach football. I don't take summers off. I don't go see the world. I don't get to do those things. It's the choice and the passion that I've chosen to follow. Pablo, I would say you'll know when that trumpet goes off in your head and you're like, this is my passion, and that light that lights you up. And when you find it, go for it. Attack that passion, invest in that passion entirely. If you don't have the trumpet, if you're not sure what your passion is, there's nothing wrong with that. Keep trying stuff. That's where the exploration is. That's where you keep doing things. And that could take moments and times and years and decades of your life for some people. As long as, go back to the previous answer, as long as you have taken care of your responsibility, you're taking care of yourself. I've got kids that have graduated that are 25, 26, and they're like, Butler, I don't know what I'm gonna do, I'm failing. No, you're not. You're living your life and living a good life, and if you wanted to tomorrow, pick up and move to Timbuktu and go experience that, go for it. Because that's the situation you set yourself up with in life. Now, if you've got responsibilities that are gonna prevent you from doing that, those responsibilities, whether that be family, or other things that you got to take care of, then those have to take precedent. You need to take care of business. A great question.
That was a great question, man. Hey, and real dope answers, man. And I appreciate the questions in the comments. But at this time, man, in our final moments, if you could just drop off one nugget, you already dropped a lot of jewels today, but if you could just give us one final one, just so you could leave off on, what would that be?
I'd end it kind of the way I started, and I'm gonna go back to it the way I end a lot of my classes. Choose life and choose love, and don't be afraid to. And I'm gonna steal this again from another positive male role model in my life that did so much for me, Jeffrey Nicholson, who his final Facebook post was, "Look somebody in the eye today and tell them you love them. Make sure they know you love them." If I can say something that we can do and that I want to champion more of as a Black man, it's making it okay to love, and to love your family, to love your boys, love your community, love your mentors. Need more of that, and to have that be you want to talk about masculine traits. Love is masculine. Being able to say I love you is manly, and to let somebody else know the impact and the investment they have on your life is something that, in these darkest of times when we need the most light, Love is that light, and love is that life. I go.
Hey man, I appreciate you for being a wonderful guest tonight, and I appreciate all of our viewers in the comments. At this time, man, we like to give you your flowers, man. Our MACM famous 3 snaps. So if we could all come off mute, you could just sit back and relax, Mr. Butler. But on the count of 3, 1, 2, 3. Man, I appreciate you for being a dope guest, man. You gave great answers, great insight. And at this time, I'd also like to invite you to a part 2 because we really didn't even get into the rest of your story, man, with all these great questions.
I'd be honored to do a part 2. I was glad the questions came. It's way featuring me. It's way easier for me to answer questions and talk about myself. I would love to be a part 2 in any way that I can be involved with this incredible group and the work you guys are doing. I'm always here.
Yes, sir. And we will definitely keep on with the questions for your part 2. But one of our facilitators will reach out to you, so we make sure to get you on that list. But with that being said, I'm going to go out and close this up. Just to our viewers, can you please make sure to follow us on all of our social media platforms? We got Make a Chess Move, Make a Culture Move, our virtual artist storytelling. Check out our YouTube at MACM or Make a Chess Move MACM. Check out our website. We got a whole lot of dope stuff, including the donations tab. Make sure to tap into our Facebook at MACM303, Instagram MACM303, Twitter MACM303. And then look out for our workshop, y'all. Y'all know we do these MACM virtual workshops where we just learn chess, financial literacy, and combating the culture. We'll be pushing out those flyers real soon, so be on the lookout for those as well. But with that being said, again, thanks to our guests for being so dope. Looking forward to hearing your part 2. To our viewers, make sure you tap in tomorrow at 7 for another dope story. And with that being said, y'all knock them out there.
Peace.